Okay. Motion to reconvene in open session. Can we get a motion from the board? Laughing, not meant to point here. Jim and Karen Quigley Hobbs, all those in favor? Approved. We're now reconvene in open session. Our territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Any declarations of interest from the board? Seeing none. Closed session recommendations, there are none. The consent agenda. Does anyone have an item from the consent agenda they'd like to move to the regular portion? Sandy.
I don't need to move it. I just want to put attention on the appreciation letters. I think so often we hear the things that don't go well, and there's some really good letters in there that really highlights good work that do day to day.
Yeah, works pretty well. Okay, so nothing else. Can I get a motion to for the consent agenda? Moved by Sandy and seconded by Hobbs. Those in favor? Approved unanimously. Business arising, there is none. Correspondence, there is none. Police services report. Sorry you had to put up with it once. Okay, that's, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Okay, agenda item, chief of police reports. So I see the chief up there.
Good morning, Chair McLean, members of the board. Thanks very much. Very pleased to be joining here today. We have some great items for the board and the community. So the first item up for today is our strategic business plan update. And joining us will be Amanda Franceschini, who's one of our strategic planners and has helped to lead the creation of our plan and is now mobilizing our leadership team on the actions and all of the fruition of the planning that's gone over the past year and a half. So we'll turn over to Amanda to provide a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board, Chief, Executive. I will share my screen. You should see an intro slide, strategic business plan. And we'll begin with a review of the GOST framework that is guiding the design of the plan. One generally accepted strategic planning approach to organize desired future state advancement activities is to place it into 4 levels: goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics, with the acronym GOST. So goals represent a general what. That's what you'll see in terms of our commitment to safety, our connections, our members, and our resources. Objectives represent a specific what. Hence, we kind of describe what we mean by those things. So in that matrix, we've covered the general and specific what. These 2 layers are published in WRPS's publicly available plan. Strategies delve into the general how, whereas tactics are the more specific layer of how. And I'll note that all of these goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics do remain aligned with our vision, mission, and values, and the content satisfies our legislative requirements. To determine the general how, there was a series of facilitated exercises. Champions selected from working groups' ideas and their expertise, and they also applied some decision-making filters. The result? 31 strategies. Grouped by objective, these by statements are newly shared in the progress report, which was attached in your package. Now, each strategy requires identifying a series of tangible steps, the tactics. These internal, shorter-term to-do lists take the form of action plans, and the tactics in the action plans have been chunked into quarterly and yearly targets. To reach these targets, champions have identified which positions in the service will be doing the work or coordinating the work with supports. Now, being the most specific layer, tactics in the action plans are naturally the most adaptable and responsive layer of the planning framework, revisited over the course of the SBP. Now, to reassure you, SMART principles have been applied to increase the odds of success. So we'll see that the plan is specific as we progress in the framework from what to how. It's also measurable. All of the strategies and tactics have been rooted in the environmental scanning pieces to allow for repeat measures. So because it's a policing audience, imagine the classic investigation board they show on TV with red yarn connecting evidence. Each strategy has at least one thread connected to at least one of the scanning pieces, which we can trace back and take stock on. And these scanning pieces, you'll recall, include a statistical landscape of our region, comparators nationally, as well as the results from our community surveys, focus groups, a steep V analysis, and our own member survey. We also have the advantage of a Canadian police performance metrics framework. So this is comprised of 4 pillars. Basically, every measurable item can fall under either crime and victimization. So those are measures of the incidence of crime, victimization, offender metrics, court data, recontact data. The second pillar would be police activities and deployment. So those would be measures of police functions and activities that contribute to public safety, including some of the non-crime related policing responsibilities. We also measure police resources. So that's a measure of our personnel, operating expenditures, other assets. And we measure trust and confidence in police. So there's a bucket of standardized questions that Public Safety Canada is encouraging police services to adopt to, again, measure trust and confidence in police and perceptions of police legitimacy. We've also made sure to apply some achievable and assignable characteristics, which is why we have champions, positions accountable, and supports identified for every strategy and tactic. As well, leaders identified a feasible decision filter so that by the time the best ideas made it into the plan, they were perceived as being achievable with existing resources or planning for HR, IT, finance, accounting. Realistic, again, the best ideas made the cut because a relevant decision filter was applied such that it will solve an original problem. And we've also created some time-bound and timely ways of chunking the plan into those quarterly and yearly milestone dates in the action plans. I'd also like to address engagement. With champions assigned to the objectives level within the GOST framework, they now share common goals, which sets up collaboration. And this is a layer that we've newly built into this cycle. Additionally, positions accountable may be uniquely assigned to the strategies, which increases the number of members involved firsthand. Roles were assigned based on a position's relation to the subject matter, so there was some face validity. Now, especially evident this cycle as well, in many action plans, supports outside one's team have been forecasted, and as such, champions will have an opportunity to provide that positive reinforcement and close the feedback loop on the impact of several members' contributions to those desired SBP outcomes. Over time, the planning process itself has intentionally involved a cross-section of members, and this greater involvement has led to greater engagement. The influence of the strategic business plan has increased 16% over time, from only 33% of members in 2014 agreeing it made a difference in their daily decision-making to now 49% last time we measured in 2023. And last cycle, objectives with greater collaboration, and what we mean by that is working across reporting lines or involving non-direct reports in accomplishing a common goal. Those had a higher completion rate by the midpoint of the plan, a trend that was maintained to the end of the cycle. In terms of reporting, WRPS is in a unique position where we have an online reporting tool. Onboarded have been all the champions and PAs responsible for using it. It allows to put the latest update in one spot and allow it to be collected in one report, hence the attachment. The collection is saved, though, to create a narrative. So if there's ever any new positions accountable or new champions that take responsibility of an objective or strategy, they can see the history and notice some of the important milestones. Any of the entries are meant to be meaningful, succinct, within scope, and related to the metrics. The status will still remain traditionally marked as in progress, completed, on hold, and use color cues to help draw the eye. The strategy becomes achieved if all the tactics in the action plan are completed, with the upfront effort switching more to a maintaining and monitoring phase. Now I have a graphic here to help frame how we're also measuring success, because the narratives in the progress report will represent some immediate term indicators of quantity and effort, and those will continue to be provided biannually. When we move from those outputs to outcomes, success would mean turning the baseline of what we're measuring in the desired direction. And those performance measures would be reviewed in longer intervals for quality and effort. For example, annual reports or incorporating results of some of those repeated measures I mentioned, or allowing some time to pass between implementation of something and evaluation of that thing. And it's recommended that a baseline trend would be determined by comparing the most recent data point over a 5-year summary. In some cases, it may be that there is no 5-year trend information or the data may not be available. But by the end of the plan, it will be possible to gauge the effect of both the quantity and quality of efforts, such as how completely goals were achieved, because they're nested with objectives and the strategies and tactics. So we'll be able to gauge the collective impact of the strategies with a 5-year gaze. There's also ways of measuring success with some tools, for example, the core strategies and success measures matrix. So you can envision how if we have these 4 pillars in the Canadian Police Performance Metrics framework, we can take each one of our strategies and tactics, assign high, medium, and low ratings to those to indicate the perceived strength of some of the linkages, and have more of a means-ends approach as opposed to a done, not done mindset. So it's an additional tool to further illustrate how strategies in the WRPS SBP can map onto some domains, or even more specifically into indicators. And we'll be able to see where efforts are loading heavily and which initiatives are predicted to make the most difference. There's also ways to communicate and again close that feedback loop with some of the feedback we received from our public and our members, as well as the statistical landscape. We can use succinct one-pagers for quick release communication, including the driver, aka the original problem, the description, and supporting facts. And this can be branded. The first release can acknowledge the original problem, and then the second release would switch to what has been done about it. It's not a replacement for comprehensive full reports, but more of an alternative format to suit the audience. Next steps with the strategic business plan would be to perform those action plan check-ins. So if some time has passed, just doing another scan for, are these steps still the best steps to achieve what we want to achieve? If there's any adjustments to timelines or any supports that need to be given the heads up. There will also be champion meetings to again discuss those common goals that they share, and strategy work will continue. You'll be hearing next about Q4 2024 milestones and accompanying narratives. And at the end of the year, there should be some short-term and long-term metrics reporting. With that, I will turn it back to the chief.
Thanks, Amanda. So, I mean, certainly the board with input from our community and our members as well has put together a well thought out plan, and we do have a 4-year horizon that's compared to a 3-year one. So today's check-in was just to assure the board that we are on track with the nuts and bolts and really honing in on how all the tactics and actions and objectives and goals will be carried out. So as Amanda highlighted that the next update for you will have some hard metrics on exactly where we are at the infancy of getting the plan off the ground. And certainly, those details will matter for the board's assurance that we are, meeting those those horizon deadlines that we are playing over the next 4 years. So, subject to any questions of the board, I just wanted to thank Amanda, working very well with all our strategic service professionals. Amanda is also representing WRPS as the president of the Canadian Association of Law Enforcement Planners. So she does hold a leadership role with colleagues across Canada, and that pays dividends internally as we really bring our strategic business plan to life. So thanks, Amanda, for your leadership and coordination, and we'll open it back up to the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Any questions from the board? And thank you for the presentation. Move on to 11.2, digital evidence management and disclosure, Nancy Whittish, and I don't know who's introducing this, Chief.
I'll turn it to Deputy Fenton for a short introduction. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. Happy to have Nancy Whittish here joining us, who manages our digital disclosure team. This is a new area of the service and of law enforcement to address the influx of digital evidence related to the rollout of our body-worn video and in-car cameras, which has been highly advantageous to us and the community. However, one of the unintended consequences is making sure we have capacity to manage all of that data. So Nancy's going to provide you a brief presentation to just kind of highlight some of those impacts. Over to you, Nancy. I think you're just on mute, Nancy.
Alrighty, can you hear me now?
Yep. Good.
Okay, good morning. Let me just share my screen here. Sorry, can you let me know if you can hear me and see my screen?
Looks great, Nancy. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, well, I'm pleased to be here this morning to represent the Information and Evidence Management Unit, which is one of our largest civilian areas. Our civilian professionals serve and support the organization with immense pride and dedication. They are truly leaders in police administration, and specifically in this relatively new area of digital evidence management. We remain a key contact in the digital evidence management field with many of our policing partners across Canada who look to us for best practice and guidance. Today, I'm going to provide you with an overview of our disclosure obligations, share some of the incredible work being completed by our teams, and discuss many of the pressures that they are currently facing as a result of the growing volume of digital evidence. So, as you're aware, most of the work we do is driven by some type of legislative requirement. This includes our requirements to provide disclosure, including digital evidence. Some of you have seen these examples before, but just to highlight that major developments in this area have really happened in the last several years, with precedent-setting decisions from the courts that are contributing to growing workloads for our administrative teams. So R versus Stinchcombe, it dictates our legal obligation to provide all relevant materials in our possession to the Crown, as they must provide full and complete disclosure to the defense. The Jordan decision continues to impact our work and our timelines to provide disclosure. The court system is striving to be Jordan compliant, which means that they are now trying to schedule cases early to avoid charter breaches. And this impacts us as they require complete and accurate disclosure from us in advance of setting trial dates. So there is daily partnership between us and the court to get things where they need to go and on time. And then in recent years, we have case law setting requirements to provide criminal records for Crown witnesses, and more impactful in the realm of digital evidence is R versus MGT, which dictates our legal requirements to provide 911 recordings as part of first disclosure. These examples are to highlight that the demands and volume of the materials we must process and disclose are increasing. And then furthermore, our teams also have privacy legislation to adhere to when processing files for disclosure. So just to build that connection for you, 911 recordings are required as part of first disclosure. Our teams review, listen, and possibly vet these files to ensure that the personal information of our citizens, including victims of crime, is protected through the court process. So for example, this can include a place of employment, a home address, or a phone number. Our teams do an excellent job at safeguarding this digital evidence. The quality control and review, along with the vetting of digital evidence, can be very time consuming, but it is critically important to protect the privacy of our citizens. However, we do have new tools to help us manage our workloads and share digital evidence files in a more efficient manner. The province announced the implementation of the Digital Evidence Management System, or the DEMS, in 2021, with the intention to create a more connected justice system. DEMS is an incredible tool for our field of work. It allows us to capture, store, and share large media files, such as the ones that we create, like 911 recordings, video from in-car cameras and body-worn video, as well as interview rooms. And it allows us to manage the vast amount of digital evidence that is coming in from the community, such as footage from Ring doorbells, dash cams, and pictures and videos from cell phones.
Nancy,
It enables.
Nancy,
Yep.
can you, we're not seeing the slides advance, so.
Oh, I'm
still on
sorry.
the first one there.
Oh, I apologize. They're advancing on my screen here. Sorry. So I'm just going to go over. Try that again.
What's section?
I think, Nancy, if you can try and hit the full screen presentation on the PowerPoint there.
Nope. Sorry, are they still not advancing?
So I think you got me, you have your screens inverted on the presentation because we're just sort of seeing the slide deck there.
So let me try this again. Now I don't know if I've helped it or not because I can't see from my screen.
If you just try to relaunch it in terms of how you share. There we go. I think Holly might be trying to help us out here. There we go. So Nancy, can you see where the slides have advanced to for the DEMS version?
Yep, I can. Thank you for doing that. I have a new laptop as of Friday, so things are not working correctly.
You're ready to go to the next slide, and Holly will do it from this end.
Alrighty, will do. So sorry, I think I was talking about the DEMS is an excellent tool. It allows the community to upload evidence directly into the system, which truly allows us to provide better service to our community, and it saves a tremendous amount of resources that would otherwise be wasted driving to and from addresses in our region to collect evidence. So an enormous amount of efficiencies have been gained from the utilization of the system. And then next slide, please. So to summarize, volume is increasing because of demands related to legislative requirements, because of an increasing amount of digital evidence coming in from the community, but also due to the expanded use of technology that is creating digital evidence. Since 2021, the organization has deployed nearly 300 body-worn cameras and just over 100 in-car cameras. And we recognize the many benefits of that program to both our community and organization. We are also expecting just over 130 additional body-worn cameras to be deployed in January to our central division and then to any new officers joining our police service as well as in-car cameras to any new vehicles that are added to our fleet. Additionally, as part of the modernization strategy, Axon Capture is also being piloted with one division and one investigative unit at this time. It's an application that allows our officers to take audio and video witness statements from witnesses using their mobile devices. And this tool is unquestionably going to be a time saver for officers, as it will eventually replace the need for handwritten statements. So the organization wishes to deploy the application service-wide to find those efficiencies with officers in the field. However, with both Central Division and Axon Capture expansion, we also anticipate significant workload impacts to our administrative teams. Okay, next slide, please. So we have been striving to innovate and modernize our administrative areas for several years now. Through past projects, we've created a good foundation to prepare for our digital evidence and disclosure workloads, including the centralization of our processes and teams, which has allowed us to be agile and adapt to this new and changing landscape. In 2022, we implemented recommendations from the Administrative Staffing Alignment Project. This included the realignment of existing resources to create positions that provide case management support. And then we also brought together members from around the organization to create a centralized case preparation disclosure team. Lastly, we were able to repurpose other positions to build an entirely new team to support digital evidence, and all of that was without impact to the 2022 budget. All of these teams now work collectively to support one another and to move disclosure to the courts in a timely manner. However, the implementation of new and emerging justice technologies and at the provincial and organizational level continue to impact these administrative teams, creating new workloads, new processes, and new responsibilities. We have been and are committed to continuous improvements and continue to look for efficiencies to manage these workloads and to lessen financial implications. Along with the creation of the new digital disclosure team in 2022, a working group was established that has been focusing on 3 key areas to help manage this workload. And then these areas include process improvements, technology enhancements, and ongoing Crown consultation. We've achieved numerous successes over the past year with creating efficiencies that help us save time on task. We also have and continue to advocate as a customer of Axon for tools and technology solutions that create efficiencies in our work. We've had some good success to date with obtaining enhancements to the tools and software that we use. And then lastly, we continue to work with our Crown Attorney's Office to manage expectations and the prioritization of our work, ensuring that we are completing no more than our requirements and that our justice partners have what they need from us to successfully prosecute cases. Okay, next slide. And then with each phase of technology deployments, the team faces many demands and pressures, including a growing work queue of requests for digital evidence. The chart just sort of highlights how our requests for disclosure have changed over the past few years. Our greatest workloads were once related to 911 audio, and now we see increases in other types of requests stemming from in-car and body-worn cameras, as well as Axon Capture, which have not yet been deployed to full capacity. The chart speaks to the volume of requests we receive, but one request can result in the processing of numerous files that are related to an occurrence. So last year in total, the team has processed and disclosed just over 23,000 files. And as of September 1st of this year, have already surpassed that volume, processing over 24,500 files already. As we anticipate the deployment of the last stages of modernization, our workloads, timelines, and staffing are continually being monitored to ensure organizational compliance with our legislated disclosure obligations and to track our resourcing requirements and needs. The team has continued to grow with the staggered implementation of technology across the organization. We started with 7 members in 2022 and now at this time have 14. However, there is currently an imbalance of a higher workload than there is staffing. So despite our best efforts to manage the increasing workload, we foresee that our continuous improvement efforts and exploration for technology solutions alone will not be sufficient. So consistent with the recommendations of the modernization project and the findings of the body-worn video pilot in 2022, additional administrative resources will be necessary for long-term success. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions? Anything further or you're good? Thank you. Good. Okay, any questions from the board? Karen quickly thoughts.
Just like to recognize the redesign and reapplication processes that were in all the work that went into redesign and of this in terms of the modernization project. So again, another great example of effectively and efficiently utilizing the resources we do have in order to keep up with the times, if you will.
If I can just tag on to Karen Quigley Hobbs, it is really impressive, but it seems to me the increase in demand is a trend that's going to continue. And I would imagine that that's an accurate projection on a go forward basis. This is a new tool that obviously is very well used within WRPS and solving crimes.
Any comments, questions? Chief, go ahead.
Just to, yeah, both comments were absolutely on point, and very proud of the team and teams of teams that have worked on refining and improving our practices over years. But this is we are living through a digital revolution with evidence broadly, and so we're committed to continuing to use best practices and approaches right across the world to ensure that we're as efficient as possible. And learning a lot from other partners that are at the exact same point as us, is that there's an explosion of demands. And the board has also pointed us before to the world of artificial intelligence and sound data governance, and that will be the next realm of management of these types of evidence and criminal investigations and such moving forward. So we're well positioned to take on all those new challenges moving forward, but credit to Nancy and all the teams that are working on this very crucial work. And Deputy Fenton has continued to have great carriage of this file. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. No more questions or comments. We move on 11.3 intelligence notes Q2 with John Frost, and I don't know, Chief, who's going to introduce that.
Thanks very much. So very pleased to welcome two complimentary presentations. So the first one will be intelligence notes, and John Fast from our Strategic Services branch will be providing a bridge to both presentations. So over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, does that appear in presentation mode for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Chief. Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. As a quick reminder, as either mandated by legislation or required by the board, WRPS officers are currently required to provide perceived race in 4 selected interactions. They are use of force, regulated interactions, intelligence notes, and search of persons in custody. WRPS has been providing this data since 2020. The collecting and analyzing of race-based data is for the purpose of identifying and reducing systemic racism where possible. Our analytic strategy moves into enforcement action benchmarking. Through our analyses, data can be used to flag the institutional and cultural practices that could be introducing disparity into the delivery of police services. WRPS's strategy adheres to the Ontario data standards through the identification of factors related to the system of policing that may lead to inequitable outcomes across the sector. Moving on to the topic of this specific board report, all intelligence notes are created at an officer's discretion. Intelligence notes are used to document persons and/or activities for investigative purposes. Identifying information in an intelligence note can be collected where no interaction takes place, where the identifying information is derived from a third-party source or already known by the officer, or where the interaction with the person was first lawful. This report presents intelligence notes entered between April 1st and June 30th, 2024. In 2023, 1,054 intelligence notes were created, which averages to roughly 250 notes a quarter. In the second quarter of 2024, 241 intelligence notes were created. After the jump in Q1, this number is more in line with those from 2023. These numbers reflect continued evidence that officers perceive intelligence notes as a valuable information gathering tool. A single occurrence can result in multiple intelligence notes. Of the 241 Intel notes created, 94 focused on individuals, 105 were created about locations, while 42 were created about unoccupied vehicles. When officers create an intelligence note, they are asked to identify the rationale for documenting information. A single intelligence note can have multiple rationales, so the number will sum to greater than 241. Similar to what was observed throughout 2023, intelligence notes were most often created to document associations between people, places, and vehicles, followed by documenting information related to drugs, drug trafficking. The RIBD analytic strategy will focus only on the 94 Intel notes that focused on person subjects. The Ontario data standards for the identification and monitoring of systemic racism suggest two different analytic approaches for identifying systemic racism. In line with the Ontario data standards for the identification and monitoring of systemic racism, we applied two different analytic approaches. First, we calculate racial disproportion. Here, the proportion of individuals within police data are compared to the local resident population proportions. Second is enforcement action benchmarking. Here, benchmark ratios are used to compare the proportion of individuals from groups at different points within enforcement. Ratios exceeding a cutoff value serve as flags for further investigation into the policy, practice, and procedures that inform police decision-making. For both, values exceeding 1 indicate overrepresentation, while values above 1.5 represent a flag for further investigation. I will start with representation based on age. The gray bars represent the proportion of individuals in the population based on the 2021 census data. The blue bars represent the proportion of individuals in intelligence notes by perceived age category, as identified by officers creating the intelligence note. Disproportion is represented by blue bars being taller than gray bars. Enforcement action benchmarking compares the height of the blue bars to each other. In terms of both disparity and disproportion in the intelligence notes created this quarter, there was overrepresentation of those aged 18 to 39 years. Moving on to gender. Gray bars represent the proportion of the population based on the 2021 census data. Blue bars represent the proportion of individuals in intelligence notes. For both disproportion and enforcement action benchmarking, we see the overrepresentation of males in Q2 intelligence notes. Now we move on to perceived race. Again, gray bars represent local resident population. Blue bars represent the proportion of individuals in intelligence notes. For this person characteristic, different patterns emerge for the different indices. For disproportion, as compared to local resident population, intelligence notes overrepresent Black and Middle Eastern racialized groups. The blue bars are taller than the gray bars. For enforcement action benchmarking, when comparing racialized groups to the white racial group, as recommended by the Ontario data standards, we see no evidence of overrepresentation. The blue bar for the white race category is the tallest on the graph. The final graph illustrates the value of enforcement action benchmarking for helping to identify flags with respect to which rationales are implicated in benchmark ratios. Specifically, as compared to white counterparts, Black individuals were overrepresented in intelligence notes created in relation to break and enter robbery, firearms, fraud, and human trafficking. Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in intelligence notes created in relation to drugs, drug trafficking, and firearms. Using these flags to drive our investigation, we can triangulate this pattern against other types of information within and external to WRPS to gain a better understanding of why we might be seeing the overrepresentation of Black and Middle Eastern individuals in particular categories. The why takes us back to our 4 drivers of disparity. In summary, intelligence notes are most frequently created to document associations and information related to drugs, drug trafficking. Replicating previous patterns, when taken together individually, younger, male, and Black and Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in intelligence notes. For the latter 2 mentioned groups, this is particularly true for intelligence notes created to monitor activity related to firearms. In partnership with the community and our academic advisors, Dr. Les Jacobs and Dr. Lauren Foster, we consider how the cultural and institutional practices of police may contribute to observed overrepresentation to address systemic biases where they exist. Finally, the RIB DCS team continues to review how intelligence notes gets used and the value they add to the service. Thank you.
Else you want to add, Chief, before we go to the board?
Subject to any questions? No, just continued congratulations to the work within strategic services. So supported by Mandy Williams, Hassan Siddiqui, and John Fast. The race and identity-based data collection strategy continues to move forward, and you'll see it reflected in the next presentation. WRPS is also co-leading the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police initiatives on race and identity-based data collection approaches across the province now. So we have some leading minds helping to lead this work locally, but also for communities across Ontario. So they're becoming very well astute in the practices and reporting, and the long-term vision remains the same, that we need to continue to draw attention to impact upon the communities that we're serving. So with that, over to the next presentation, John and Inspector Eddie Lewis will report on our use of force reporting for Q2. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Chair McLean, members of the board, Deputy Davis and Deputy Fenton. Thanks to John for sharing screen and helping with the technical aspect as well. I appreciate it. This morning, I'll be presenting on the Q2 use of force results. Presentation will follow a similar format to what we were used to. We can go to the next screen. Thank you. Current presentation covers data from use of force reports from April of this year up until June 30th. In this presentation, we'll talk about both reportable incidents and use of force reports. You'll recall that reportable incidents refer to those incidents that require a use of force based on legislation or on our policy and procedure. Reminder that a single report can generate a number of single incident can generate a number of use of force reports. And then lastly, on that slide, you will see that there are several layers of scrutiny for each report. The platoon staff sergeant, the senior leader that's in charge of the unit, branch, or division, and then ultimately the sergeant in training and education that reviews it. Next slide, please. Can see from this slide that in Q2 of 2024, there were 89,288 police occurrences and 3,835 arrests. Use of force incidents have decreased from 107 down to 95. The number of modernized use of force reports has also gone down from 160 to 148. To note, the proportion of police interactions involving force has stayed the same as in previous quarters at 0.1%. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The graph that you see on your screen depicts the number of use of force reports created, separated by incident type. On the far right there, consistent with what has been observed previously, The most common incident type represented in use of force reports was weapon calls. And then warrant execution on the left-hand side was again the most common incident type. Next slide, please. Thank you. In Q2 relative to Q1, we observed an increase in handguns drawn and handguns pointed reports. There was also an increase in the number of rifles drawn reports, while the number of rifles pointed reports remained relatively stable. And next slide, please. Related to CEWs, overall, there was a dip in the number of CEW reports this quarter. Specifically, we observed a drop in the number of CEWs drawn only reports. That covers that one. If we can go to the next one, please. And I think this is my last slide before I turn it over to John to finish up. With regards to injuries in Q2, there were 6 minor subject injuries that were reported. Just as a reminder, with regards to minor injuries, that's where an individual has been treated by medical staff but not admitted to hospital. Those injuries can include things like abrasions or stitches. And then there was one major subject injury reported this quarter. I'll turn it over to John if you're ready to go. So I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you, Inspector Lewis. Thank you, Chief, Chair McLean, and members of the board for the opportunity to present to you today. As a reminder, starting in 2023, the numbers in the table do not reflect individual people, but officer perceptions. For example, if 4 officers fill a use of force report involving the same subject, all 4 perceptions will be included in the data, even though those perceptions are about the same person. In Q2, there were 47 overall perceptions of Black individuals in use of force reports. This corresponds to 29% of all perceptions. There were 10 overall perceptions of Middle Eastern individuals in use of force reports. This corresponds to 6% of all perceptions. White individuals were again the most represented group in use of force reports, totaling 97 perceptions, which represents 60% of all perceptions. Black individuals were overrepresented in use of force reports by a factor of 6.17, relative to 4.06 in Q1 2024. Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in use of force reports by a factor of 2.07, relative to 4.70 in Q1 2024. There was no evidence of racial disparity in use of force reports. The highest benchmark value was for Black individuals at 0.48. This number is far below the threshold for evidence of racial disparity at 1.5. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Chief, any comments to wrap both of those reports together?
I just always struck by the number of interactions that our members have every day, and as you'll see in my chief of police report towards the end of this meeting, the level of weapons that our members are seeing within the public through the course of their regular duties is on the rise, and so very pleased with the professionalism of our members and the complexities of these reports. I do invite anyone to read the package beyond the presentation as well, because it does provide a detailed description of every single interaction where a use of force report is made to articulate exactly what steps are taken through the course of those interactions. So credit to the team who puts these reports together on a quarterly basis, and really appreciate the collective work. And again, the race and identity-based data collection strategy helps to complement the regular reporting that has been going on for many years. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, questions or comments from the board? Seeing none. Oh, Doug, go ahead.
Just a comment about statistics and how overwhelming the data is on just everything that's being presented.
Mhm.
And it's really impressive. And it really, I think it rounds out any concerns that people may have in the public about what's happening when you have such a database as we're seeing here. I said to the chief one time, reminds me of baseball statistics. The most foul balls off a left-handed hitter in the top of the seventh inning of a night game. And it's exactly what we get here. And I think it's great. I really do.
Thank you.
Yes. Any questions? Okay, thanks, Chief. Okay, we're moving on to 11.5, community safety and well-being plan, the youth engagement strategy. I think it's Inspector Matthias and Amanda are coming back, Chief, and who wants to lead this up?
That's correct. So this is our last report today, apart from my closing report. So this has been a long time in the making. When myself and the deputies joined the leadership team, there was a commitment to create a youth engagement strategy. And this really speaks to, the evolution of our society. But, in almost every conversation we have publicly, people want to know, what are we doing about issues related to youth violence? And also, how are we tackling issues of upstream investments and modernizing our practices to meet the needs of today and also tomorrow? So credit to Inspector Aaron Matthias and Amanda, who have helped to lead our service, but also bring our community in to create a holistic plan that is far-reaching and very much in depth to meet the needs of youth and youth success on many levels. So I'll turn it over to them for the formal presentation and then look forward to this playing out in the months to come. So over to you, Aaron and Amanda. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks, Chief. I will share my screen here. Just trust everyone can see that.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, good morning, Chief, Chair McLean, and members of the board. Amanda and I are pleased to join you today to present the 2024 to 2027 Waterloo Regional Police Youth Engagement Strategy. And the strategy was built with intentionality and innovation as we sought to create a plan that's foundational for the police service, one that can grow alongside our organization as well as the region. And we aim to design a plan that had some layers of complexity, but at the same time is simple to communicate to our membership, to youth, and our partners. There's some key guiding principles used throughout our planning phase that appear a number of times in the strategy, and that is a focus on improving outcomes for youth, using evidence-based practices, and observing the concepts of community safety and well-being, in moving vulnerable and at-risk groups and individuals away from systems response and into resources focused on prevention and social development. And I'd just like to give a quick thank you to a working group of over 30 WRPS members who contributed to this strategy, as well as our friends at the Children and Youth Planning Table, Smart Waterloo Region Innovation Lab, and Camino Wellbeing and Mental Health for their contributions, as well as over 15 agencies and organizations that provided input, action, and connections. So we look at a plan truly designed for Waterloo Region, and the need for the development of this strategy was very evident and pressing. And we were presented with an opportunity to better align our services and service delivery. In addition, we're supported by evidence indicating that the region continues to experience rising levels of youth violence, diminished school safety, and we acknowledge as a major regional system that we have the ability to mitigate adverse childhood experiences and improve overall outcomes for youth. And this is really possible through integrating our work with new and existing strategic partners, ensuring that we are measuring and evaluating the performance of our initiatives and interactions to inform future practice and investment. And overall, this strategy connects to the larger strategic business plan through our connections, considers equity-deserving communities through our EDI strategic plan, and reflects the service values of people, partnership, and professional excellence. I'll provide a brief overview of our planning process, which really began in January when we presented to the Police Services Board what amounted to a problem statement. which outlined levels of youth charges, diversions, violence, recontacts, and introduced the concepts of adverse childhood experiences and where they exist in our own data. As a refresher, adverse childhood experiences include witnessing family violence, experiencing neglect, abuse, violence in the community, amongst other factors. And a significant body of research indicates that accumulating these experiences throughout childhood has a detrimental effect on a child's development and can result in long-term negative health consequences. We move to an additional review of existing feedback from our COPS and youth and policing initiatives, and concurrently made connections and sought feedback from the Youth Engagement Network. This is a really wonderful local resource. It's a community of practice comprised of over 60 professionals that represent both systems and community partners who are working with youth each day. Additionally, a youth engagement strategy planning guide was developed and distributed to the previously mentioned working group of 30 WRPS members, who were then provided youth engagement training by youth coordinators from our friends at Camino Wellbeing and Mental Health. These items were all deliberately designed to advance the knowledge of our membership as it relates to the current youth dynamics in the region. And I will pass over to Amanda to explain the Youth Impact Survey and how we leverage that through planning.
Thanks. The Youth Impact Survey was and continues to be a medium for children and youth ages 9 to 18 to share with adults and decision makers what life is actually like for them in Waterloo Region and how we can work together to use the data to improve well-being. So the great thing with the Children and Youth Planning Table is they took this data that they heard from youth, then brought them in person and asked them, what do you think needs to happen next? And then through over 20 different sense-making sessions, youth identified key areas for change in our communities. Those data and action fact sheets can be found online, but really there's 63 specific ways youth told the whole community we could advance their well-being. And some of those, police can do something about. We can resource it through time, people, or space. And as you see, there's a few examples on the slide. They specifically had ideas surrounding belonging, so creating more opportunities for them, accessible, leveraging existing youth spaces, both physical and virtual, so that they can experience and engage with an opportunity, as well as ways to impact and influence decision making, so continuing to involve them in discussions that impact them in real ways. And learning is another domain. They want to practice and gain tangible real-life skills that set them up for success outside of school. This could be done in a peer mentorship model. So they're interested in those kinds of explorations in their earlier academic years. Participating is another way that police can provide some resources. They're looking for community events and public spaces to come together. They're looking for accessible, geared towards youth kinds of opportunities. They may even have a hand in helping them be organized, as well as opportunities to earn volunteer hours, so making the existing opportunities easy to find and accessible. Protected is another domain that makes sense, police resource. They have some very specific needs around support and education with issues such as bullying, sexual harassment, social justice movements, and issues within the community. This could be done through workspaces, schools, or other youth-occupied spaces. They also want to be respected, and this can take the form of the way we share public information about any issues, making sure it's universal and specific to youth, speaking directly to them, having ways that they can access it in a way that works for them, as well as continuing to ask them about their experiences, whether it's through surveys or other means of input into their broader needs. And this ties into a later slide where we talk more about data, but I will flip it back to Inspector Mathias.
That's great. Thanks, Amanda. So laying our data across the really the feedback obtained from youth from across the community led us to our 3 strategic priorities. Those are community and youth safety, creating the conditions in the community that contribute to safety, resilience, and well-being, education and outreach, where we look to invest in pathways and programs that will improve outcomes for youth. And lastly, leadership and development, where we want to share in youth design initiatives that facilitate community and civic engagement. Looking under our first priority, we see three major actions that are aligned and a recognition that youth, school, and community safety are intertwined and require strong partnerships, multi-sector collaboration to really create and maintain safety in this environment. The upcoming divisional teams of community and youth engagement officers will in large part carry large components of the strategy forwards and will act as a resource and subject matter experts to school and community partners, manage school and youth related call responses and complex investigations. And this was based on quite a bit of consistent feedback from youth, community, and systems partners that recognize a dedicated resource with subject matter expertise was really a preferred delivery model. Next, we look to opportunities based in our Youth Criminal Justice Act diversion pathways. And this presents one of our best and perhaps most significant opportunities to change outcomes and negative trajectories for youth. It gives our members the chances to guide youth to preventative resources with measurable outcomes. And we look to do that by streamlining our providers and giving our membership more definitive direction around diversions and intake processes. Through the streamlining, we can minimize our administrative tasking, simplify this for the front line, and co-design reportable outcomes with our service providers and partners. And a third action under this priority is prevention. And crime prevention, as we know, is the first priority listed under adequate and effective policing, as prescribed by the Community Safety and Policing Act. In adhering to community safety and well-being concepts, it's important for us to move the vulnerable and at-risk groups to upstream resources. For example, we look to our research initiative with the University of Waterloo, focused on reducing youth violence and the implementation of upcoming violence reduction initiatives, which includes our efforts in crime suppression. Important, a national scan of community protective factors indicated that access to mental health resources was the number one needed resource to ensure youth well-being. And so we want to recognize an important partnership with Starling Children's Mental Health Center, acting as a partner and provider for youth mental health in the region, as well as acknowledging ongoing conversations with public health around substance abuse and prevention, and how to develop robust community mental health and addiction supports for youth. And we also identified an opportunity to expand early intervention practices and provide public safety messaging, which will be captured on a later slide. So when we look at the suite of these services, we would really look at public safety, diversion, and prevention to improve those outcomes. Under our second priority of work, education and outreach, we look to develop a way to engage youth online. And a youth landing page and information hub was one priority that came out of planning, where we can centralize public safety information and as well links to our community partners, social media, and host an upcoming youth volunteer sign-up program. And contributing to that is that public safety awareness messaging, as was previously mentioned to the last presentation. We are an excellent source of data and information, and we can make that age appropriate and for public consumption. And the ability for the service to refer to this online resource gives us an alternate platform for our partners to access this information, for community to access this information, and allows important public safety messaging to be made available to the community. And our third action under education outreach is youth engaged and community connected members. And this really is our commitment to remaining relevant and up to date with youth focused educational opportunities for our membership and remaining integrated and supportive of ongoing community agencies, networks, and collaboratives. And under our final priority area, leadership and development, this is an area where we really see the ability to optimize our positive interactions with youth, support youth belonging, community cohesion, and build trust in police. And our first action under this priority is to develop youth volunteer program where youth can harness and obtain community volunteer hours as they're partnered with WRPS members. And we look to leverage our extensive attendance of community events and programming with presents an opportunity for youth really to experience their diverse region firsthand. Our second action under this priority is to evaluate and grow existing programming. And basing our actions and evidence is fundamental to this strategy. Current programs will be evaluated through internal and external mechanisms, which will inform our future investment and growth of youth programming, but also allow us to change course on programming that may not be as effective. And we look to highlight a recent partnership with Measurement for Change and utilizing existing performance frameworks that, again, we'll see on a later slide. And our final action under this priority is the development of a youth ambassador program and supporting youth-led initiatives. And the ability to connect, relate, and empower youth in our community is really vital to the success of our police service. And a youth ambassador program will provide these connections and create channels of communication between youth, key service messaging, and feedback from our community. And supporting the innovation of our community partners in the youth space is also key under this plan. Our ability to staff, support, or facilitate ongoing initiatives designed and led by youth encourages their ongoing development as leaders in our community. And so these priorities really rest upon this foundation that we see here. And this provides us a consistent and measurable approach, which really values partnerships and service integration. So we look to standardized indicators through community vitality and youth belonging that were highlighted earlier by Amanda. And these measure quality of life in relation to community, perceptions of safety, security, amongst others. And this really provides and elevates our ability to base our actions in evidence. And so we want to use contemporary research, local knowledge to promote public safety, support evaluated youth programming, and change those negative trajectories that we're able to observe. And we'll do this through developing strategic partnerships to build trust and address complex issues in the community from many angles and align our work to create community safety and well-being. And to speak more to data, I will pass it back to Amanda.
Thank you. Yes, we have a lot of advantages in terms of some regional and national efforts where we can align and standardize. The Canadian Index of Well-Being is a research source that provides detailed information on the quality of life of residents in Waterloo Region. It identified 8 domains as being critical of well-being, and community vitality was one of those domains. They also found that police have been identified as playing a role in community vitality. They define it as being social engagement, social support, community safety, and attitudes towards others and their community. Youth go on to define their community vitality in some of those domains that we've already mentioned, like feeling secure, feeling like they belong, learning, participating, feeling protected. So you'll see how the youth engagement strategy tactics are now aligning with those youth domains within community vitality, within what police can have an influence over. We also have the Canadian Police Performance Metrics Framework, again, 4 pillars of crime and victimization, police activities and deployment, police resources, and trust and confidence in police. Where we expect to see changes in trends with intentional efforts, we will revisit those. We will go back to some of the statistics that Inspector Matthias has identified as being the original problems and seeing over the course of our plan and a 5-year trend where we've made a difference. We can measure the ways that we've invested in the youth engagement strategy, and trust and confidence in police is something we can use as a touch point every time we have interactions with youth. That kind of a framework is comparable nationally. Very specific to Waterloo Region, we can partner with Measurement for Change. M4C is funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and it operates under the Children and Youth Planning Table in partnership with the University of Waterloo. The M4C group supports community-based programs serving children, youth, and families by assisting with data collection and analysis, particularly related to participants' sense of belonging. They have demographics and, data and action fact sheets that can help direct some of those efforts. So being something that any programming that works with youth can apply across the region, we'll have the advantage of seeing how well we're addressing sense of belonging, as well as comparing to other programs across the region. And this only helps us to adjust our programs to better serve our diverse youth members. Back to you, Inspector Matthias.
Thanks, Amanda. Just really an overview of our last slide here and the strategy from a bird's eye view. And we see a robust strategy focused on public safety, improving outcomes for youth through prevention and diversion, while also ensuring that we have strategic partners and aligned assets within the community to help us create the conditions for community safety and well-being, community vitality and youth belonging, while also supporting and developing youth leaders and civic engagement in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from the board, comments? Anything to wrap up, Chief, in terms of work that's doing, what's next? And I know you're fully engaged in this. What should we expect next?
So a plan is only as good as the actions that it generates. And so very proud of the comprehensive approach we've taken to not only develop something that will work and resonate with our members, but all of our community partners, that is evidence-driven and really focused on addressing the key issues, which is the success and the health of our youth, which leads to community safety broadly. So there's a lot to unpack here within the plan. Our approach will be to continue to report to the board on a regular basis, but really as we launch this, it's to bring along as many young people and partners as we can to amplify the work, and it'll grow in its approach and magnitude in the years to come. So really want to give credit to Inspector Matthias and Amanda, but also so many members and community partners that have brought this plan to bear to this point, and very much are we looking forward to moving forward. This is all about reducing police and any community negative interactions with our youth, but also amplifying their capacity and their potential as we strive to build a safer community together. So thanks very much to our leaders here today, and very much look forward to seeing this play out in the months and years to come.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to 12.0 monthly Chief of Police report. Chief.
Thanks very much, members of the board. Very pleased to provide a monthly Chief of Police report for September, looking back at the actions of the past month. The public will recognize that we have a significant weapons seizure in early September. So members of our direct action response team stopped a vehicle for a traffic violation in the Kitchener area of Weaver Street North and Bridgeport Road East. And through the course of the interaction, officers determined there to be firearms and ammunition in the vehicle. And ultimately, a 39-year-old male was arrested and charged with careless use of firearm and transporting violations related to weapons. Ultimately, 17 firearms were seized from the vehicle. And through the course of a comprehensive investigation over 24 hours, officers ultimately were led through a search warrant to a Guelph residence, where they ultimately seized 156 improperly stored firearms, with an additional 60 firearms under the public safety provisions of the criminal code. So over 200 weapons that were unsafely stored and utilized were seized. And this was a major public safety seizure that will continue to work its way through the criminal justice system. But it speaks to the work of our members through the course of their regular duties and the unintended things they may encounter that pose a risk to public safety. We also recognized another similar event where our officers conducted a traffic stop at Fisher Hallman and University Avenue area of Waterloo, and officers from the Direct Action Response Team determined that the driver was under suspension, and through the course of the arrest, we located and seized drugs, weapons such as brass knuckles, a conducted energy weapon, and a loaded firearm. Ultimately, 45-year-old Cambridge male was charged with numerous offenses. And again, this speaks to some of the dangers posed by our members as they conduct their duties. We want to pay attention to a trend that we've seen. I think it's very much in the public's mindset about concerns about vehicle thefts and organized crime. We can see that last year, reprogramming thefts from January to September in 2023 totaled to about 88. And this year, we've seen a significant increase in the total number of reprogramming vehicle thefts. So from year to date, we've seen almost 150 reprogramming vehicle thefts in the region of Waterloo. Recently, in October to September of this year, we saw 16 vehicles believed to have been stolen through these reprogramming tactics by organized vehicle theft groups. And so ultimately, we've drawn some public attention to ways that residents and citizens can protect themselves and their property. And the efforts of our investigative services division and our organized crime teams and crime suppression teams are doing the best we can to disrupt and intervene with organized crime groups that are carrying out these risks to our community. Looking at road safety efforts for the month of August, as you can see displayed, we carried through a number of significant proactive and responsive road safety measures, resulting in hundreds of fatal 4 offenses as displayed. And also, as the community came back to life in Waterloo region in a busy September, we made significant efforts to address road safety issues from an enforcement, also a proactive and public safety awareness standpoint. And as you can see, in just 2 days from September 4th to September 6th, officers conducted a great deal of enforcement across the region in school zones, promoting active safety transportation for everyone heading back to school, and a number of enforcement actions were also taken. We're very proud that the board is hosting a community input session for the 2025 budget. The first one will take place this Friday on September 20th, and that will be an online forum for people to provide their input on next year's budget. And a second opportunity will also be provided on Monday, October 28th, 2024, and details can be found online for how to view and participate. Looking at some of our initiatives and rounding out the month, we wrapped up a very successful youth and policing program where we had 12 amazing young people join us for the course of the summer. And they were involved in so many great collaborative efforts where they were out in the public, joined with our members at a whole bunch of community opportunities where they led us to new knowledge about how young people are taking on the world, and in partnership with policing. But we're very proud to have had graduation hosted at the end of August, where young people put forward some of their projects and their hopes for the future. So we look forward to bringing back the youth and policing program next year as well. And also, we have launched the fall version of the Citizens Police Academy, welcoming close to 50 individuals back into our buildings and looking at our policing practices across the region of Waterloo. So a nice start to the fall where the Citizens Police Academy is back and informed by the citizens that we serve. And lastly, just want to round out to our board and to the public the significant success of the Backpack Challenge. So this year, over 6,500 backpacks were donated, along with so many supplies. And we had 25 successful organization deliveries out into the public, meeting and delivering all those supplies as people head back to school. So the success of this program has been so amazing, over 22,500 backpacks and supplies over the past 7 years. I just want to thank our community for their generosity and the amazing lift they've given to so many. So in wrapping up, some great images to share of that outreach and those connections, and so much positivity with our members and our community coming forward in such great collaboration. And as we head into September, arguably our busiest month of the year, with so many community events and the region coming back to its vibrant tone and rhythm, we're very proud to be immersed in so many of those throughout the course of September, and wishing everybody welcome back to school, and we will look forward to a safe semester and a safe start to the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Chair Redmond.
If I can just have a question, Chief. It was under the auto theft, but you talked about the recruitment of young men and underage people. And I often hear this when you look at the jewelry heist and the smash and grab. And it just strikes me that when you talk about youth and policing, and you talked earlier about the community safety and well-being plan and that upstream funding, that's how you stop that. But I'm just wondering if you can comment, because I find that really disturbing that these young people are being recruited because they're young offenders and they will be treated differently within the court system.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. And it is a growing concern. We continue to work with policing partners across Ontario, across Canada, but within the GTA, we know that organized crime groups are preying upon vulnerable young people, especially young men. And as you've mentioned, drawing them into robberies, high-end thefts, with the thought that the consequences will be less within the criminal justice sphere. And so what you've seen through the course of Deputy Davis's work on crime suppression and addressing the highest needs of criminal investigations, but also even our youth engagement strategy, we're trying to bring all these things together to intersect and intervene in the best way we can to address real needs of violence in our community, but also with the most holistic vision and practical approach to addressing the real needs of members of our community, so they don't fall into those opportunities where they may be preyed upon by organized crime groups and making wrong decisions. So we won't do it alone. We'll do it with our community partners along the way, but our concerns are yours, and we know that the community is listening, watching, and hoping for us to make a more positive impact moving forward.
Any questions, comments?
Just a quick question through you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the auto thefts, are you hearing anything from the car industry from their point of view of trying to rectify or to strengthen the theft issues within their cars?
Thanks, Councillor Craig. So the answer is yes. As we've been following this story, really over the past couple of years, but within the last year, we know that the policing partners, public safety partners, with the province of Ontario, with their attention to the auto theft, creating essentially a ministry devotion to this work, are working with the auto sector to look at enhanced security measurements to ensure that the vulnerabilities of the technology is something that is going into the design and the availability of vehicles broadly within our society, within Canada, and also looking at port security and other facets through which the vehicles, have a market within Canada and beyond. So it's a multifaceted approach, and you've honed in on one of the important ones, which is working with private sector, the auto manufacturers, and the designs of all the security features. It's a component that has changed. And so the technology, the proactive approach, and the enforcement all has to come together. And I can say within the province of Ontario, we have really sharp eyes on what needs to happen.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Appreciate the update. Moving on to building business, future agenda items for information items. It's a note to the media. Once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to join into Zoom. With the login details that were provided, where Chief Crowell myself can available to take questions. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn? I'm by Chair Redmond.